Oh, what's up, guys? It's XFL Jim here with my Week 5 XFL recap. Let's get into it. Okay, so game number 1, we had the Houston Roughnecks taking on the Seattle Sea Dragons, with the Roughnecks losing. Holy shit balls. Didn't see that one coming. The Dragons won this one 21-14. The Roughnecks kind of ended up making it a game at the end there. Basically, this was kind of the Brendan Silvers game we expected throughout. This is the we kind of all saw this one coming. When you have Brendan Silvers as your quarterback, you're going to get games like this. This is what we all sort of saw coming from the jump. But the Roughnecks still had shots. They didn't look great offensively, but defensively, I still think they were decent. They had 3 picks from Ben DiNucci, who was looking just classic DiNucci out there. And even at some points, he was getting real pissed. There seems to be a little bit of friction between him and Josh Gordon. You see this. This is DiNucci. This is Gordon. They're just like friction going on right in between the two of them, and I don't know how it's going to resolve, but I'm expecting fireworks of some kind. The Sea Dragons have been heating up. They're on a 3-game winning streak right now, and I expect to see some really big things coming from there. They're now, all of a sudden, they're extremely alive for the playoffs. They're looking really good. The Roughnecks, when you kind of look back at this schedule, they beat the Guardians twice and the Renegades. So maybe they're not quite as impressive as we thought, and we'll know way more next week after they play the Defenders. I think this was a big eye-opener for the Roughnecks, and they gotta fix some things if they want to see if they want to be back on top. The big takeaway from this one is the Roughnecks lost with a +2 turnover differential, which is just wild. But I guess that's just what happens when you play the Sea Dragons. They're gonna win with INTs. They win by losing. That's the Ben DiNucci way, if I've ever seen it. We did have an almost comeback situation here where the Roughnecks were trying. They willed themselves. They had a late touchdown, and they got the 4th and 15. One last play. Wade Phillips had a desperation challenge that he absolutely needed, but didn't come through. And another thing I've noticed throughout the week is we got a lot more flags this week just in general, and I'm not a fan. I think we saw this in the USFL around the mid-season, where the refs started getting a little carried away with it. They kind of let them play it early on. Mid-season, they get a little carried away with throwing the flags, and then they drop it and let the kids play again. And by kids, I mean grown-ass adults, because these guys are getting fucking paid. Takeaways for each team. Roughnecks, unfuck yourselves a little bit here, boys. Brandon Silvers, you need games like games 1 through 4 for Brandon Silvers, not like game 5. That's what you're gonna get, though, and maybe see a little bit more Cole McDonald going forward. If you see a little bit more of this from Silvers for the Sea Dragons, just limit those turnovers. You guys would have blown the Sea Dragons would have absolutely throttled the Roughnecks if Ben DiNucci didn't turn the ball over 3 times. I'm not gonna count every interception on him, but I mean, he loves to throw some of the dumbest picks I've ever seen in my life as well. So there's a little bit squirrely on him as well. But the Sea Dragons, maybe the hottest team in the league, if not for the Defenders. And Roughnecks, run rough fuck yourself, baby. Let's go. Game number 2, we had the DC Defenders taking on the St. Louis Battlehawks in the Battle Dome, with the Defenders winning this one 28-20. This was a great game throughout. It was the Battlehawks sort of playing catch up, and I think they would have had a really good chance if it weren't for the mistakes that they made. They made, what was it, 10 penalties, 12 penalties, something crazy like that. It was stupid. DC just plays too clean to allow you to do that. And the Battlehawks were definitely in it through most of the game. Obviously, they only lost by 8. They only lost by a touchdown. But DC sort of broke things open with a couple big plays. Abram Smith, player of the game, probably my player of the week. The guy is unreal. He's just an electric factory. What do you have, 220 yards and 1 million touchdowns? Something crazy like that. The Defenders didn't even really have to pass the ball in this game. It's absolutely wild just how much they dominated on the line of scrimmage against the Battlehawks.
For the Battlehawks, I think AJ McCarron's still doing a pretty good job. I think he will lead this team to a pretty decent season, but you gotta clean up your mistakes. You can't be having games like this against the top competition. You're just gonna kind of cap your spot at the 2 or 3 spot. And with the Sea Dragons looking as good as they are, you gotta watch out for them now too. I just think the DC just has such a good offensive and defensive line right now. It's hard to really match them up, especially in the North. I feel like when they play the Sea Dragons, I think the Sea Dragons defense is getting better, but the Battlehawks, I wanted to see more. We had high expectations for this offensive line coming into the season. They haven't really let up for it because AJ McCarron was getting sacked all over the place. It's unacceptable if you're a St. Louis fan. In front of those 35,000, to be fair, the only team St. Louis has lost to this entire season are the DC Defenders, who, spoiler, they're going to be my #1 team in the power rankings this week, so they're pretty damn good. They're kind of just, the Battlehawks are just sitting in a position where they just need to rise to that next level to be a championship team. I do think they're arguably a playoff team, but they're going to have to fight now. It's not given to them anytime soon, and I know the league would like the Battlehawks to make it in, but I don't think, nothing's guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed in this beautiful league that is the XFL, if you ask me. Takeaways for each team. Defenders, keep doing what you're doing. You can basically run on anybody. You have the best run game in the entire league. Best offensive line, maybe arguably best defensive line as well. And just keep doing what you're doing. Just don't make mistakes. And they're a very non-mistake prone team. They're a very, very clean team. And I think they're going to successfully ride that into the playoffs. Whether or not that translates to a championship season, we sort of saw that with the Generals in the USFL. They had a really strong run game and couldn't capitalize against the #1 offense of the Stars. Maybe we'll see a similar situation if the Sea Dragons continue to stay super hot and they wind up playing the Defenders in the playoffs. That'll be an interesting matchup, but feeling pretty good. Feeling pretty good for the Defenders. Woo! Let's get to game #3, shall we? Oh yeah, let's go. Okay, game #3, we had the Orlando Guardians taking on the Vegas Vipers in the game that somebody had to win. Might as well have been the Vipers because they won it 32-30. What was it? No, 37-30. I don't remember the score. This game was fun, and then it was just very stupid. That's the broad scope. Dumb. There's a reason these two are both 0-4. You kind of saw it in display in the fourth quarter of this one. But for the most part, it was a very exciting game, very good football. Paxton Lynch proved himself to be a born loser because when the Benedict Arnold himself, Quentin Dormady, came back in, the Guardians looked refreshed. They looked excellent. They looked great. That defense felt alive. The offense swirled in just an emotion, and they looked way better. Luis Perez and the Vegas Vipers looked pretty consistent, pretty good throughout. Not having Martavius Bryant obviously hurts them, but I think Jeff Badette is a good enough sort of #1 receiver. They just need a big body, consistent target. I think Luis Perez is consistent enough to get this team to, I don't know, maybe one more win with this sort of coaching. I love you, Rod Woodson, but god damn, I don't feel like I can really talk about anything other than the fact that this game was fun, super good throughout. The defense disappeared in the fourth quarter, and then all of a sudden, the dumbest decision making I've ever seen in my life happened with the time management for the Guardians, and then the Vipers electing to pass for a play. The Guardians almost have a chance to make the comeback there. It was like, who wanted to lose more? The Vipers were like, here, you have this first one. And then the Guardians were like, no, you take it. And the Vipers were like, no, you. And the Guardians were like, no, we insist. And eventually the Vipers just ended up winning. And it confounds me. It confuses me so much. I don't understand these teams at all, and I don't know if I ever will. I don't know if I really want to, if I'm being perfectly honest. The Guardians and the Vipers just, they don't make sense, and I'm fine with that. I've accepted that. And Terrell Buckley is, someone needs to have eyes on him because I am genuinely worried for his safety. So watch out for Terrell Buckley. Please, somebody keep tabs on him for me. I'm personally worried about him. But as it stands, the Vipers walked away with the win, and now there remains one undefeated team, one defeated team. Let's see what shakes up next week for the XFL. But before we do that, let's go talk some Game 4 action, shall we? And game number 4, we have the San Antonio Brahmas versus the Arlington Renegades. And man, what a goddamn game, I guess. We started out with Reed Sinnett for the Brahmas. He gets hurt. Back to Jack Cohn, and I think we're finally on the table that Jack Cohn is who I think Jack Cohn is. We know what we're getting when it's Jack Cohn time, and it wasn't pretty. The Renegades defense was plenty to keep them in this game. Looked like the Brahmas had some chances until Jack Cohn comes back to be the starter. He's not going to be the guy to get it done for this team, and it makes you think that the Renegades are kind of propping themselves up as the number 2 team in the South. But saw a little coach's challenge in this game. Bob Stoops tried something in here, and again, failure. It seems like Wade Phillips is not. It seems like Ward is the only guy that could really get these challenges locked in. Low scoring game. We did have the under, but I just think this is kind of a dire situation right now for the Brahmas. That's my main takeaway after this game. The defenses look pretty decent for the most part. The Renegades somehow had a run game going on. Good for them. They hadn't had that all season, so that was massive for the Renegades. Their run game was pretty darn good, and it got them the win here in the fourth quarter. But Jack Cohn led Brahmas are just not a good team. I cannot put faith behind the team led by Jack Cohn. Kyle Sloter kind of looked like how Kyle Sloter does. He's slowly but surely improving each and every week. He looked a little bit better here. Still had some dumb picks, still had some weird rushing abilities, but the offensive line for the Renegades is slowly improving, and I think they're in a weird position where I don't like them against any team that's above them. But I think they're getting marginally better each and every week. You know what I mean? Takeaway for each team: Renegades just keep improving, and Brahmas, you probably need Jack Cohn to not be your quarterback. It's a tough situation right there for the Brahmas, and that leads me in to the power rankings at number 8. Give me the Orlando Guardians. Yes, they looked better with shifty scumbag, the scoundrel Quentin Dormady. That's what we're going with. They looked a little bit better, but they're still pretty darn bad. At number 7, I'm sticking with the Vegas Vipers. The ending of that game gave me zero hope, maybe negative hope for both teams. And at number 6, I'm going to go with the San Antonio Brahmas. Jack Cohn being behind that team just bad. Arlington Renegades up next at 3-2. There's a couple 3-2 teams. I think they're the worst out of that group. Then I'm going to go with the St. Louis Battlehawks at the moment just because they're cooling off a little bit. They made a lot of mistakes. That offensive line needs a lot of work. And at number 3, give me the Seattle Sea Dragons. Maybe. I mean, the DC Defenders are obviously number 1, but the Seattle Sea Dragons are one of, if not the hottest team in the XFL right now. At number 2, I'm going with the Houston Roughnecks. Yes, they just lost to the Sea Dragons, but guess what? You still got a better record. And Brandon Silvers has shown more in the last couple weeks than it's not just 1 week for matchup. At number 1, it's the DC Defenders, pretty solidly. Best line in the game offensively. Best defensive coordinator out of all the teams. They're just looking super good. I think that'll do it. That is week 5 of XFL action. We're at the halfway point, folks. And I am ready for another 5 weeks of absolute horniness, absolute amazingness, and absolute XFL football. And also, stay tuned because the announcing date for XFL Jim versus USFL Jim will be coming out shortly. Be prepared for that. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys next week for more XFL action. Bye. Boop, 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 mwah. Kisses.